open this. The grandfather built the box to hold the letter. The son found it, read it, and kept what it said private for the rest of his life. When the son passed away, his own son cleared the house, found the box on a high shelf, opened it, read what was inside, and came to me, read it aloud beside this kotatsu, then asked me to share it, before he burned it. What I am about to tell you is the only remaining record of what a grandfather needed to say. Find chapter 164 first. If you have not yet been to the workshop, it is time for chapter 171. Some things are written for one person and find their way to more, not through carelessness, through the particular persistence of words that carry something real. The grandfather wrote for his son. The son read it and kept it the way people keep things that are too private for ordinary conversation and too important to discard. He carried it for the remainder of his life in the knowledge that it existed, in the completed box on the high shelf, and that this was sufficient, until it was not. Until the house was cleared and the box came down from the shelf, and a younger pair of hands opened something that had been waiting, apparently, for exactly that moment. The grandson came to me on an autumn evening. I had not met him before. He found his way here the way people sometimes do, not through any introduction I can account for, simply arriving at the door with the particular expression of someone carrying something they need a quiet room for. I invited him in. He sat across from me at the kotatsu. He had the box with him. He set it on the table between us. He said he had found it while clearing his father's house, said his father had never mentioned it, said he had almost not opened it, had held it for some time before deciding that whatever his grandfather had made deserved to be opened rather than passed along still sealed. He opened it at the table between us. The craftsmanship of the box was immediately evident, the joinery precise, the lid fitted with the particular care of someone who understood that a lid should close in a specific way and had the patience to achieve exactly that. Inside, in the shallow recess shaped for the purpose, a folded letter. He took it out, unfolded it carefully. The paper aged but intact. His grandfather's handwriting. He recognized it from old documents in the family. He said he had read it once when he found it, had needed several days before he was ready to read it again. He looked at me across the kotatsu, asked if I would hear it. I said I would. He began to read. If these stories have found their way to you, if you find yourself returning to this quiet room, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. It tells me, and whatever else watches from this room, that you were here and that you intend to find your way back. If you have a story of your own, Granny is always listening, watching, waiting. The letter began simply, the grandfather's voice clear in the first lines, direct, unhurried, the voice of someone who had thought carefully about what he wanted to say and had decided that saying it plainly was more respectful than dressing it. He wrote about the workshop, about the years he had spent in it, about what the work had meant to him, not the objects produced but the work itself, the particular quality of a problem solved in wood, the satisfaction of a joint fitted correctly, the way the workshop had been, across a long working life, the place where he understood himself most clearly. Gu ude, he wrote at one point, tired in the way of someone who has worked long and well and knows the difference between that tiredness and any other kind. I wonder if someone you loved had written you a letter they built a box specifically to contain. What do you think they most needed to say? What do you think would have been too important for ordinary conversation but too real to leave unsaid? If you have a story of your own, this quiet room has space for your experiences too. Granny is always listening. The letter turned in its middle pages to the sun, to specific memories, things the grandfather had observed across his son's life that he had not said aloud at the time. The particular moments a father notices and carries quietly. A decision the son had made early in his life that the grandfather had doubted and had been wrong to doubt. A difficulty the son had navigated that the grandfather had watched from a slight distance, the particular distance of a father who knows when to be present and when to let someone find their own way through. Things noticed, things kept, things that needed apparently to be said even if the saying came late, even if it came in a letter inside a box completed after death. The grandson read steadily, his voice quiet. The Kotatsu warm between us. You are still here. Good. Some stories need a witness all the way to the end. I wonder if a letter written for someone else contained something you needed to hear as much as they did. Would you feel you had the right to it? The final pages of the letter were the ones that had shifted something in the grandson. The grandfather had written toward the end about the son's own son, about the grandson now sitting across from me at the Kotatsu, had written about him specifically, about what the grandfather had seen in him across the years he had been alive to see it, the particular qualities he had noticed, the specific hope he held, written to the son, but about the grandson. As though the grandfather had understood that the letter might travel further than its addressed recipient, or had simply needed to say what he saw, regardless of who eventually read it. The grandson finished reading, was quiet for a moment, then looked at me, said, I think he knew I would find it. Da, I think so too. I think about letters that outlast the people they are written for, about words that carry something real enough to persist in a completed box on a high shelf, through a life kept private and a house cleared, and a younger pair of hands that almost did not open what they found. The grandfather wrote for his son, but he wrote about his grandson. And the letter found its way, across the years and the shelf and the clearing of a house, to the person it had always been moving toward. Some things written for one person are really written for another. The writing simply needs to travel the long way around. Oshoshina, the grandson said quietly when he finished reading. To the letter, to the grandfather who had written it. to his father who had kept it for him without knowing he was keeping it, and burned it at the Kotatsu's edge when he was done, the only copy gone, except for what I am telling you now. Another whispered story from Japan, shared quietly here beside the Kotatsu. If you are clearing a house and you find a wooden box on a high shelf, a box whose craftsmanship suggests someone made it specifically to hold what is inside, open it. Take out the letter. Read it even if it is addressed to someone else, because some letters are written for one person and find their way to more, and some that seem private are really waiting for exactly the person who found them on a high shelf in a house being cleared. Read it carefully. Read it twice if you need to, and if something in it shifts something inside you, find a quiet room. Read it aloud to someone who will listen. Give them permission to share it, and then let it go, because what needed to be said has now been said to everyone it needed to reach, and the box, empty, precisely made, the lid fitted just right, can be kept, as the grandfather intended, long after the letter it was built to hold is gone. If this story stayed with you, if the dark or the shadow feels a little closer tonight, you know where to find me. I am always here beside the Kotatsu, watching, waiting. And if you wish others to find their way here too, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. I would not object. And if you have a story of your own, this quiet room has space for your experiences too. Granny is always listening.